Check, check, check. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the esteemed weekly daily podcast. Esteemed. I'm not even sure. What does esteemed mean? It's like in good. It's like a good thing. Highly esteemed. I don't know. Probably 20% of the words that I use are, just things that I've heard and I've repeated. And if you've said, hey, Ben, you have to go back to middle school and define that word, I probably wouldn't do very good in middle school. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. It's another episode. You may notice a background change. You may notice that the couch I'm sitting on, the back wall, is different. Why is that, Ben? Why are you in a different area? Well, I'll tell you guys what. I am in a different state and city visiting Salt Lake City. I'm in Utah for the first time. And it's been fun so far. Been here a couple days. Came out with the girlfriend Dailey. She's a teacher. She's doing some what is the specific thing she's doing? She's grading essays. I think AP essays. She did it last year, doing it again this year. Meeting with a bunch of other teachers at the convention center and grading essays all day, every day for like a week. So I said, I'll come out and I will work from the AirBnB. And we did comedy on Saturday. Had a couple other shows lined up, but those unfortunately got canceled. But it's been fun so far. It's very hot in here. I'll be honest with you guys. I turned the AC off because the AC is unbelievably loud. And I was like, if it goes off, I don't know if my limited editing skills, that's a weird words that didn't feel good coming out of my mouth consecutively. Limited editing skills, I don't know if that AC would be able to be taken out. So I said, let's cut it off. And I'm going to really try to get through this podcast quickly because I don't know why I'm wearing sweatpants and long socks, but good to be here in an Airbnb in Salt Lake City. We're very close to downtown. We walked through there yesterday. It's probably the Airbnb is probably like a half a mile from downtown. So very close. It's like a nice apartment. It's a studio apartment. I'd say it's probably let's think. If I had to guess, maybe 450, 500 square feet. But it's very nice. I like the layout. You walk in, and on the right side against the wall, you have the kitchen, nice kitchen space. And then there's a little, the bathroom's directly on your left. And then as you walk further where the kitchen extends along the one wall, on the left-hand wall, there's like a divider. It's like a half of a wall, which creates kind of a cubby for where you can put the bed, which is right over here. So it's a studio, obviously no separate bedroom, but I like a studio that kind of makes it feel like a bedroom. A half wall goes a long way. A half wall goes a full wall in my book. All right, that didn't really make sense, but you guys get what I'm saying. I'm sitting on the couch here. They got a nice TV right here. They got washer dryer to my left. Behind me, the only downside about this, if I were to be living in a space like this, is the closet right behind me is the only closet in the apartment. It's not a walk-in closet. It's a sliding door, pretty small closet, to be honest. And that's just pretty limited space. But they got a nice patio. I was looking up prices. I will say this. I do enjoy going to different cities and imagining what life would be like. Isn't it fun to imagine? I did that, traveling abroad, living in Nicaragua for a year. I think that was a big reason why I wanted to go there. I was like, I don't want to imagine. I want to know, what is it like to live in a different country for a while? And that was fun to get to experience. But I love doing that in American cities, anywhere I go. But it's, I guess I wouldn't say it's more of a reality than moving abroad because I've already moved abroad. So that was a reality. But it's cool to try to imagine, like, hey, what would life be like here? And I will say, Salt Lake City has been pretty neat. I mean, limited exposure, but pretty neat. But back to my point, I was looking up prices, and I think this apartment complex, I think this studio is maybe around $1,500, which is probably pretty comparable to Denver. And I'll go through the building itself. The building's very nice. It's good location. They've got a little market, like a grocery store right in the bottom, like on the first floor of the apartment. I mean, it's very convenient. It's very nice. Again, it's an Airbnb. And I'll say this. I'm not going to shout out the Airbnb host because I don't know who they are off the top of my head, but also that would just be very rude. But very nice apartment. The check-in was a little odd. So Dailey and I, we drove here. We drove here from Denver. It was about an 8-hour drive. And we get here, and a couple hours before we got here, the Airbnb, if you're not familiar, Airbnb, it's like you should be familiar. It's where it's instead of a hotel, you can people will rent out their apartments or houses or things like that. And on the app, there's like a little messaging back and forth thing. And they had been sending me a bunch of, just, hey, here's the steps for you to check in once you get there and all the instructions and everything, which is great. Send me this stuff. But then they called a couple hours before I got here, and they're like, hey, what time are you getting here? And I was like, we're going to get there at 4 p.m. And she was like, okay, the manager is going to meet you there. And I was like, okay, I don't know why the manager needs to meet us here. You sent us all the instructions. Usually people aren't meeting. It's kind of just like, here's the code to get in. Here's the information. Follow the information. And if you don't know how to get in, if you still have trouble, then you can call. But it's usually not like a meet and greet type thing. It's fine. I wasn't super worried about it, but it was kind of odd. Also, in all of the messages that they sent leading up to the arrival, they were like, do not go down to the leasing office. They're like, if you have a problem, it was all caps. It was, do not go to the leasing office. Do not ask them questions. Ask us questions. So before we even got here, I was like, this feels like we're going into a place where they're like, you're not allowed to do Airbnbs, but the people who own this apartment were like, we're going to do it anyways. And so I don't know what's going on, but it just felt kind of sketchy in the sense that, like, are we not allowed to be here? And you're trying to hide this? Anyways, I get here and, I'm like, where is this person who's supposed to be meeting us? We roam around, we look at the instructions, we get the key, all is good. And then we get a call and the lady's like, hey, are you all good? And we were like, yeah, are you meeting us here? And she's like, do you need me to meet you there? And we were like, no, I think we're good. And she's like, okay. Long story short, there's like 6 people who I don't think this is an owning situation. I'm assuming they rent this apartment and then Airbnb it out. I don't know how that works, but this is an apartment building. I don't know if some apartment buildings sell some of the apartments, but I imagine it's a rental thing and they're renting it out. And there's like 6 people on the chat, 6 different people. So it's just very confusing, all these people calling and everything. All that said, we got in, we get it, we get here, it's fine, okay? And per usual, if you've ever stayed in an Airbnb, every message, they've got a magnet on the refrigerator, every message they send, just a million times they hit you with like the, please give us a 5-star review. Anything below a 5-star review will cripple us as a host. Please give us a 5-star review. Please, 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 please. And look, I'm not a difficult guy. I don't need much. This place is super nice. This is nicer than... this is probably the nicest Airbnb / place I've ever stayed. On my dime, I've stayed in nicer places when somebody else is paying. But on my dime, this is a very nice place. And so we get here, and they're shoving this 5-star thing down your throat. And we get here, and I'm trying to get on the Wi-Fi, and I'm like, where's the Wi-Fi? Usually they have like either a magnet on the fridge or a welcome booklet that has all the information on it. And all I see is they had like it's on the floor here. I'm not going to grab it. It's like a little block that says Wi-Fi, and then it says, what does it say? Network and then password. It's like a little mini chalkboard. But the network and there's nothing written on it. It's just a block that says network password, doesn't have anything. So I messaged the people and I said, hey, can I get the Wi-Fi information? And they were like, yeah, checking on that right now. And then an hour goes by, and I was like, hey, just checking in. Were you able to get the Wi-Fi? And a different person responds is like, hey, here's the Wi-Fi information, but like, by the way, it's all listed there on the block. And I was like, I sent them a picture of the block, and I was like, hey, just so you know, I'm not an idiot. Like, not in a mean way, but just like, yeah, I saw the block. I didn't just ask you a million questions because I didn't look. Like, it's a studio apartment. I see this very minimal stuff in here. It's not cluttered. I saw the little thing, the little block. It doesn't have anything on it. So I was like, I wasn't being rude. I was like, thank you so much. Just FYI, there was nothing on there. And then they never responded, which I thought was very funny, because they're just like sending a million messages to be like overly like, here's what you can do and how can we help you, and please give us a 5-star review, and you haven't even come in yet, but give us a 5-star review, and blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as I'm like, hey, I need help with the Wi-Fi, they're like, yeah, well, maybe you should have looked, you idiot. I'm like, yeah, well, I did, okay? 4-star. I really, not truly, but like in my jokey head, I wanted to just send just one message and just say 4 stars. Just like a ominous threat. But I don't care to. I'm likely going to give them 5 stars. I don't think I've ever given anything other than 5 stars. But I will say, let's get into it, guys. I will say that there's been a couple things here. Now that I've done probably at least 10 Airbnbs in my life, most places have the essentials, okay? And I've stayed in some very small, kind of cheaper areas where like the home or apartment itself is not that nice, but the essentials are there. What do I mean by essentials? Okay, we're talking towels, soap, basic cooking utensils, basic cooking items. Like a lot of places will have spices and things like that. Let's go through the list of things that they don't have. Now, before I get into that, this place is great. It's fine. There's a market downstairs. We've gone and picked up groceries and supplies that weren't here. It's fine. I'm not real worried about it. But again, if the first thing that I see, before I even get here, you're sending me messages to rate you a 5-star, and then I come in and the first thing I see on the refrigerator is literally a rating, which also I wish I had it here to read off because it was very funny. It was like clearly a rating system that they made up, because 5-star review is like, you enjoyed your stay. So it's 1 out of 5 stars. 5-star was like, you enjoyed your stay. 4-star, what would you think a 4-star would be? Let's think about it. 4-star, you'd be like, it's still pretty good, right? Right? 4-star is still pretty good? No. Their rating system, which they clearly made into their own magnet, was like 5-star, good stay. 4-star, more than a few mistakes were made, I think. I don't think it said mistakes, but it's like more than a few mishaps, or like you were aggravated more than a few times. And you're like, what? That sounds like a 2-star review. What are you talking about? More, you're staying for a couple days and you're like, dude, this place heated me up more than a couple times, okay? I was like, this is not how surveys work. They clearly did not take a survey course in college. Not that you need to, but it was funny. It's like, you obviously made that up. That's crazy. Man, I'll read it later. I'll talk about it next week maybe. I laughed. I saw that 4-star description and I didn't even get down to like the 2 and 1 star. 1 star, I mean, I'm curious to hear what that says. But here's what they didn't have. Just to give you context, again, just to ramble into this microphone for 45 minutes. I'm not that upset about it. It's a very nice place. I'll talk about the pros here in a second. But first off, they've got their storage closet with extra sheets and towels. They're all wet. They're not dried at all. So those were all wet. That was kind of weird. They didn't have any. We were going to bake something. They've got a couple pots and pans, but they didn't have any dishes to bake. So it's like, all right, you got an oven. No oven safe dish. It's just like the cheap pots and pans, which you're not supposed to put those in the oven. You have to have like a certain kind to put in the oven, and those are not. Those are like $12 pots and pans from Target. So we had to go out and buy like a little cheap oven container or whatever you call it. Speaking of containers, they have no Tupperware. So any leftovers you have from cooking, we fortunately brought like a couple things in Tupperware, so we've just been using those. No olive oil, which it's like that's if you're cooking anything, you got to have olive oil. The Wi-Fi was another little thing, and that's probably it. And now that I say it, again, not something that I'm super worried about. But again, if you're gonna bombard me with the 5 stars from the get-go, have some olive oil. Have a dish I can use in an oven. And if you don't, then put a big sign over the oven and go, can't use. We don't have supplies for it. But other than that, it's, again, very, very nice. We went to the pool yesterday, so they've got, the amenities, which I'm sure I won't even use some of these, but I think they have a golf simulator room, which for me, someone who likes golf, would be awesome. Maybe I'll try it out, but I don't know if I'll have time. Since we're only here for a few days, they have a gym, which most places do, but the gym is like, dude, legit. Okay, it's very legit. And then there's a pool that we went to yesterday, and let me tell you what, nicest apartment pool I've ever seen. This place, honestly, this is why we got the place. Delina was like, let's get a place with a hot tub and a pool. And for me, I'm not, I'm kind of like, man, that's an extra, $50 a day. Come on. I'm frugal. I don't want to do that. But I will say, it is very nice, and I think we'll make use of it almost every day. And it was nice to go hang at the pool. It's been so long since I've been in a pool and done like pool hangout that it was fun. It was a good time. But let me tell you about this pool, dude. Most apartment pools, even like nice places, they're just like this regular tiny little blob. Just here's 20 feet from, length, and then your depth is 3.5 feet, and you can splash around like you're a 12-year-old kid for a little bit, but mostly people are out there just getting a tan and drinking some beer or whatever. Dude, this place was like almost, first off, the pool itself was almost like a full-size pool. It wasn't a full 25 yards, but it was probably like 18. Like, you go to a hotel pool or some of these pools, they're like 10 yards across. This was almost a full-length pool, and it was also very wide. And then they had a massive hot tub. A hot tub that could probably fit close to 20 people comfortably, like a very big hot tub. And that's a bonus in general. That's the best setup already, just from the size of those things. But then they had tons of, what do you call it? Just chairs, lawn chairs, whatever they are that you lay out in. They had 4 cabanas, like full-size cabanas, so you can have like this totally private space that could fit, I don't know, 10 people in each cabana, like a nice size cabana. And then they had like 3 or 4 massive, I'm trying to think what they call, like a massive, it wasn't a bean bag, but basically like a king size bed if it was just circular, and then pillows on there. So like a space that could seat 5 or 6 people if you just wanted to have like a lounge pad or whatever. And then they have a sky lounge, which we haven't even gone into, is right connected kind of beside the pool, which we'll have to go check out. But that was super fun. We went up there yesterday. We roamed around Salt Lake City, which, I mean, this whole podcast, I'm really getting into the weeds here. This whole podcast is just going to be me rambling about the apartment in Salt Lake City, which is kind of wild. I'll get into some other stuff here. But the pool was very full. A lot of people were out there drinking. Very interesting. You know, I've never been to Salt Lake City. You hear the whole Mormon thing. But I don't know. Mormons aren't allowed to drink from what I've heard, and everybody up at that pool was getting lit up on a Sunday. Not me, okay? I'm sober, and I read 12 pages of Dune and got a light tan/sunburn. But I was listening to people party it up right in front of me because it was limited seating, so I got a seat right in front of the 50-year-old playing cornhole with the 20-year-olds, which is always, I mean, he's, you know, it's kind of sad watching a 50-year-old who is probably, he never married or he's divorced. He's living at a cool, young, hip apartment complex, and he's just like getting ripped on a Sunday, high-fiving, playing cornhole the whole time. Also, look, this is a clean podcast, and I won't get into the details, but mostly whites, okay? White, Anglo-Saxon-looking people. And they were playing some rap songs, and let me tell you what, they were singing along to it out loud, just saying the slurs out loud. I thought that was wild. Now, that doesn't represent all of Salt Lake City. I don't know. That's just one person that I heard, but I was like, wow, lady. I mean, that's crazy that you're just saying that out loud. Anyways, very nice pool. And so we did that. Yesterday, so today is Monday. We got in on Saturday. We drove, like I said, it was like 8-hour drive. How was the drive, you're asking? It's all right. I mean, it's kind of a lot of nothing as you go. We went up to north of Fort Collins, or we went to like Fort Collins, then we cut over to Laramie, I think it is, in Wyoming, and then just went west from there. And it was kind of just like the plains. There wasn't much to look at for some of it, but then you got some little they're not really foothills. I don't even know what you would call the landscape. It's like, I don't know. There was something to look at. It wasn't just flat. And then as we got closer to Utah, maybe the last hour or two, we're kind of going through mountains, and then up in mountains, and then down into the valley of Salt Lake City. And Salt Lake City, I mean, dude, it for real, it's beautiful. It really is. I mean, Denver is great, but Salt Lake City, you're literally surrounded. Not only are you surrounded, kind of pretty much 360, I think, by mountains, you're also super close. Like, you're seeing the mountains right there. Denver, it's like, okay, you see the foothills, and then way in the distance, you see the mountains, but these are just like way closer. So it is very beautiful. But we get settled in the Airbnb, and then we did a Don't Tell comedy show on Saturday night, and it was at an adult store. Again, this is a clean podcast, so I won't go into detail what was in the store, but just think about adults and adult stores, and if you know what those are, then you can imagine what was in there. But it was a very fun show. Met the comics, talked to the comics, it was a shotgun style. It was interesting. I mean, plenty of shows do that, but I hadn't done that in a while. especially for like a don't, because I host a bunch of don't tells. But they had the first comic go up, which I guess they brought him up as the host, but he did come up like at the very end of the show and before the headliner, but we did shotgun style in between that. So he brought me up. I did 15. I brought Delina up. She did 15, and then a couple more people went up after that. It was very fun. Crowd was very fun. I had a good time. I did a don't tell on Friday as well, before the night before driving out here. And let me tell you what, feels good to do some good shows because I did the road trip, like I told you guys in the last podcast. And look, it was very fun. There were fun shows, but I've said it before. When I was doing like 30 minutes up top, that's just a long. That's a tough spot to like kill. And then some of the shows were just lightly attended, so again, it's tough to kill. They were fun and you can do as good as you can do, but there's a difference between having fun with 8 people and making it a show versus having 50 people who are like there for it and you're not going first. You're going later. But even Friday. So Friday I hosted a show in Denver before we came out to Salt Lake City and felt great. Felt loose. It was actually a smaller crowd. It was maybe like 30 people. Sorry, my nose is itchy. It was maybe like 30 people. Because I don't know, it's just nice weather. Summer is tougher to get butts in seats. But the people there were there for it, and I felt loose and silly and good, and I did my set, and felt really good about it. Had a great set. And, and then the Don't Tell here in Utah, same thing. Felt really good. It was a fun set as well. We did the show there. Like I said, met some of the Salt Lake City comics. It's funny because I guess a lot of people moved to Salt Lake City for the same reason that people moved to Denver, in the sense of the mountains and skiing and stuff like that. I mean, I never thought too much about that because I'm not super into this. I mean, I'm not skiing or snowboarding. That's not really something that I care about. So I haven't thought much about people's perspectives of like, hey, I'm moving here because this is beautiful and has the hiking and the skiing and this and that. But one of the guys on the show, funny enough, it's not that funny. It's really not that far away. I don't know why I'm saying it's that crazy, but he used to live, I think he started in Fort Collins or Denver. He closed the show out. Very funny guy. And then another guy on the show, he's like, I'm moving to Denver on Tuesday, which is, by the time the podcast comes out on Wednesday, he will be in Denver, I guess. So I don't know. It's always funny going around to different scenes because people who are really trying to pursue comedy. They're looking to move to better scenes, and Denver is a very good scene. And so it is funny to just like travel to different places and people be like, oh yeah, I'll be there, whether they're moving there or they're just visiting to do shows and check out the scene. It feels like a very small world sometimes. So it's cool to run into people like that and be like, oh, I'll see you next week, I guess. But the show was fun. We went and got groceries after that. I guess the grocery store out here that's like the big chain is Harmon's. Do I have any comments on Harmon's? It was nice. I don't want to go too into detail about a grocery store and lose everybody in the next 2 minutes, if they've even made it this far. If you have, I'll spare you the grocery store talk, but sorry, I'm trying to like sit in the middle here. I've got the camera up. If you're watching on YouTube, it's higher than it is usual. I've got a coffee table and then a mini table and then my tripod, and it just feels, my neck, it hurts. I'm looking up. So got in. Don't Tell show on Saturday. Don't Tell show in Denver on Friday. Last Wednesday, I did the New Faces competition at Comedy Works, which is a yearly competition. It's a big deal. It's the big competition for the year. And look, guys, I don't want to brag, but before going into this competition, I was 0 for 5 in moving forward in competition-based comedy things. And guys, you know what? I'm 0 for 6 now. So, big surprise. Did not make it through. I've told a lot of people, I truly, at this point, obviously with anything competition-based, I'd be lying if I said, I don't care. I don't want to win. It doesn't matter. Like, you want to win. But I truly, at this point in my comedy career, don't care about advancing or not, in the sense that if I do what I go there to do, that's all I care about. Like, now, if I go up there and I forget my jokes and I bomb and I'm not comfortable, I would care, and that would bother me because it's like, well, I didn't give it my best shot. I gave it my best shot, and that's all I care about. I just want to go up there, have fun, be loose, do my thing, and then wherever the chips fall from there, that's fine. So I did that on Wednesday. What they do is they have you pull a number. So it's like 1 out of 12, I think, 12 comics. And you pull a number, and that number represents when you're going in the lineup. Now, generally speaking, you want to pull a number that's in the middle or even a little bit later. So like probably 6 to 12 is kind of the sweet spot that you want to go. So you have a chance for the show to be warmed up, the audience members to have a couple drinks, not being, in the beginning, they might still be getting served. So that's what you want. Now, the last couple competitions I've done, I think I've pulled, like last year at New Faces, I pulled the 2 number, did not advance. I think the last time before that I did the Comedy Fort and got the 2 number. Or you know what? That might have been the first year. I think the second year. I think I actually had a good spot the second year, like 5 or 6, and just didn't advance. But last year at New Faces, number 2. This year at New Faces, I also drew number 2. And again, when I first started doing competitions, or up until maybe a year ago, I was like, oh man, that's such a bummer. I don't, blah, blah, blah. Now, like I said, I understand. I just feel more at peace with what it is. And so I was like, all right, number 2, great, let's do it. Let's have fun. And also, in the past, I might have used it as an excuse. I drew number 2 and I didn't go through because I drew number 2. No. Now, it's like you didn't go through because you just didn't do, there's a handful of reasons that it could be. I'm really rambling here, getting in the weeds. But I don't use it as an excuse anymore. I drew number 2 and I took it, and I will take it moving forward if I ever grab this as a challenge. You go, all right, if you want to advance from an earlier spot, you just have to bring it. And, I did my set. I felt good about it. I did well. I felt like I presented it well. I was in the moment. I was smile, charismatic, just felt good. And ultimately did not advance. That's okay. It's one of those things where you go out, you do the thing. I felt really good about it. And then you just see the crowd warm up and sets get hotter and hotter and hotter. And you go, look, again, if you're drawing that early spot, you just have to kill. Like you kind of have to like ruin the next couple people's set. You have to do so well that you ruin like 3 people after use their set. So I look forward to that moving forward. You just got to get better and keep at it. One of these days I'll advance, but I felt good about it. Again, I don't judge my worthiness. Is that a word? I don't judge my self-worth as a comic based on these competitions. Because there are other variables, like if you bring a lot of people to the show, there's crowd voting. If you bring a lot of people, then obviously people are there to support and laugh at your jokes. So there's a bunch of variables that go into it. But again, at the end of the day, just got to keep working at it, keep getting better, and yeah, just no excuses. Just got to go out there and rip, and one of these days I'll move forward. With that said, that was Wednesday, so did that on Wednesday. Thursday I went and saw my family. Actually, I forgot. Man, I'm almost at the end of this podcast, and I'm just all over the place. But Thursday I didn't talk about. I went up to Boulder with Delina, met my brother and sister-in-law, and sister and brother-in-law who were visiting from Virginia. So it was nice to see all of them. We went out to eat at a place called Farm and Fish, I think it was. Which it was funny because I've never been there before. It's like a nice restaurant that's literally connected to or inside of like the hotel right there, which is the exact place that the comedy club called Comic Sense is in Boulder. So literally I was sitting at the corner of this place with the window directly in front of me, seeing people walk down the stairs to the comedy show that was happening that night. I was going to drop in, but I was like, or just say hello, But I was like, all right, I'm here with family I haven't seen in a minute. I should probably not focus on comedy for a second. But had a good dinner there. Had salmon. And we walked by, got gelato. I didn't get it. Everybody else got it. You guys know me. I don't do the sugar. Shouldn't do the sugar. It messes me up. But that was my Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I've explained all of those to you guys in not chronological order, probably very confusing if you like an exact timeline. But that was the week. Yesterday was very fun. Yesterday was Sunday. Like I said, we got in Saturday afternoon, did that show. We were both pretty tired from just a long drive. So Sunday was our exploration day. Like I said, we're close to the downtown area, so we walked downtown, which was about a half mile, and we just walked up and down the city. And I'll say it again, man, very nice city. Again, limited experience, but we did walk around for a couple hours. I haven't been outside of kind of the main area of the downtown, but everything that I walk by, I mean, it's kind of what I imagine people imagine Salt Lake City is. Like a very clean, pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Like people are behaving, whatever that word is. I mean, just all of it. It was very nice. It was very pleasant to walk around. They have a bunch of nice landscaping. The buildings are pretty. The neighborhood, I mean, it's just a lot of really nice, beautiful character. And again, you have all that, and then you have the mountains right beside. So we walked around the city. Delina stopped by. We stopped by the convention center. She had to check in for her work stuff. We roamed around just to get a lay of the land, and then we ended kind of our walk up at the Capitol building, which is kind of up the hill a little bit. And dude, I mean, it's so nice. It's like this beautiful Capitol building that's up on top of this hill that just overlooks the rest of the city and the mountains. It's very nice. And then right beside the Capitol, there's like a statue or a monument or something. It's like this big stone that's carved, and it has a face at the top of the big rock stone. And I think there was a plaque there that said something about some battle. I can't remember. Was it the Civil War? I don't think it was the Civil War. That didn't come out here. It was some battle in the 1800s where they recruited Mormons to fight for our country in some way or the other. But there was a face carved into rock, and I made this Instagram story. I posted about it where I said, I'm not sure what this is, but I'm pretty sure this is Mount Rushmore. And I'll be honest with you guys, I've never felt prouder of a joke that I've put up, and I was like, I'm probably going to go viral and become famous in about 12 hours. And let me tell you what, 0 likes. I mean, nobody commented. Every time I think I say the funniest thing ever, which I'm being a little hyperbolic, but I did think it was a funny little Mount Rushmore. instead of Mount Rushmore. Because if you saw the picture too, it was a face carved into stone, like a miniature version of Mount Rushmore. But in Salt Lake City, Mount Rushmoreman. Thought it was very good. Didn't get anything. Anytime I think something's going to be good, it's just the opposite. It's not good. And then anytime I think something's not good, that's when something will like get a little traction. And you're like, you guys are, what is happening? I don't get it. But we roamed around for a while and ended at the state capitol. Then we just straight shot back to the apartment. And yeah, again, like I was saying earlier, I do find myself imagining, like, what would it be like? What would it be like to live here? Because it's probably a little bit cheaper than Denver. It's still not cheap. But you're in like a nice apartment complex and you're like, okay, $1,500 a month. And if you're splitting that, if you get split an apartment too, you're like, okay, could handle that. And then you're right by downtown. And you're like, wow, I got the pool upset, like literally kind of just imagining like a very different lifestyle, because I've never lived in like a super fancy place. I guess I have, but I worked at the building and that was a totally different circumstance because I wasn't making a lot of money and I wasn't really saving much money, and it was a very different vibe versus like, okay, I'm making a little more money now and I'm also doing comedy, so like the life of like living in this place and then doing comedy, what would that be like? But that was very interesting. It's interesting. I don't know the population here in Salt Lake City, but it seems to be a pretty decent sized city. And the way that the comics here talked about the scene surprised me a little bit. It always surprises me. In these places that have a big population where they go, we don't really have an indie scene. It's mostly just the couple clubs we have here. People do work there, which always blows my mind. I guess that's coming from a place of being very fortunate in the sense that I started and do comedy in Denver, which is such a thriving comedy scene, especially on the independent side of things. But there's also a bunch of clubs in Denver. So you got a bunch of clubs. You got clubs. You got indie clubs. You got a bunch of independent shows, breweries. And, I mean, everywhere in between. And it just blows my mind when I think one of the guys I was talking to, he was like, yeah, I run a bar show and it's like the only indie show. And I was like, dude, we're in a city that's, I don't know the population, but if I had to guess, it's probably like 500,000 at least, I would imagine. And it's like, you don't have a couple comics here who are just like trying to run their own show. That's insane. That is crazy. But I guess that's, again, I guess we're very fortunate in Denver, and having some people before I started kind of pave the way to set up a bunch of shows just puts in my brain and everybody else that I started with their brains to be like, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. You go to open mics, but then you just start your own show and you get some stage time there. And then other people do that. And then you start doing each other's shows. And then you go up from these local indie shows to a little bit better shows, and then a little bit better shows from there, and some shows at the club, and this and that. So very interesting to see the difference in scenes. I'm going to try to get out. Like I said, we had a couple shows scheduled that unfortunately got canceled, but going to try to hit up the Wise Guys mic is on Wednesday, and both Dailey and I emailed the club to say like, hey, I mean, they say on their website, if you're an out-of-town comic, send them an email and they'll let you know if they can get you up on the open mic. They also have a Tuesday bucket mic at Wise Guys, which is like the big club here in Utah and Salt Lake City. And I don't know if there's anything going on tonight. Probably won't go to a mic tonight. I think we were discussing, Dailey and I, maybe going on a hike again. I mean, there's literally trails that we can get to right beside the Capitol building. I mean, they're all over, but we're less than a mile to the Capitol building. We can walk there, and trails basically start right there that just go up further in the foothills. So very convenient to be able to do that. So we might do that. It is raining a little bit, and they're calling for potential rain later in the day. So if not today, maybe tomorrow. We'll have to play it by ear. And then, again, maybe the pool. We've got that. They got a nice gym. Only here until Thursday morning. So we've got a couple more days, but would like to try to take advantage of as many things as we can because it is very nice. It's also beginning of June. It's like the most beautiful time of the year, in my opinion. In most people's opinion, be honest. People may like winter more. If you like the cold and if you like skiing, but to say, I don't know, I guess some people would say the mountains with snow are beautiful, but I don't know. If somebody dies on the hill saying it's more beautiful when it's cold and snowy and all of nature is dead, that's a hill I'll die on. Spring is way better, and I won't fight you, but I will raise my voice at you if you say that winter is more beautiful than spring. So sound off in the as Ethan Everhart says, sound off in the comments if you think winter is better than spring. And if you do, also put down your address because I will come yell at you from the sidewalk. But with that said, guys, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to end the podcast there. I'll before I do, a couple shows coming up. I've got this Thursday, so the day after this podcast comes out, I'll be headlining Stella's Pinball Arcade and Lounge up in Greeley. Very excited to do that. I've done shorter spots in the past, last year or the year before, but I'm getting to headline this time. Very excited for that opportunity. Looking forward to doing a longer set. I think it's 30-ish minutes. Excited to do that. On Friday, I'm doing a Don't Tell. I'll be hosting that. On Saturday, I'll be hosting a show at Emporium Brewing in Denver. That's been a very fun show. It's a free show. Come check that out if you're looking for something to do. And then I've got a bunch of other June dates that you can check out on my Instagram. I've got them up there somewhere on a post that I made, and hopefully on my link tree if I've updated that. But got a lot of fun stuff coming up. Very excited about it. I'm working on new material. I'm going to try to be hitting the open mics hard over this next month to work that material out. So yeah, if you're in town, if you're in the area, come check out a show. Come rub my buzz cut, or don't look at it from afar and point at it. I don't care. But thank you so much for listening. I'm going to end the pod here, but thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys again next week.